Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. And I'm joined by sweet Shanzi Kovacs from the internet.
Oh, Yakov Smirnoff. What a country indeed.
And of course, our own little sycamore, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear. Я не говорю по-русски, я говорю по-английски.
Oh my God, he's had a stroke, everybody. Quick, get into the hospital. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very auspicious day here. We are going to Mother Russia. Basically due to Sean, really. Today's movie is called Guardians. It's also called Zashchitniki. It's another Russian word I can't pronounce. There's going to be a lot of those today, I think.
I'm not going to even attempt to say any of the actors' names. None of that.
It's a bit much, but we're going to be checking all that kind of good stuff out. And before we do want to say a good, hearty thank you to everyone who helped support this show over at patreon.com/HMP. When you're there, you get the pre-show, post-show, and, of course, Dinger Zone. And with the Dinger Zone right now, boys and girls, we are almost wrapping up. We got 2 more to go, counting this week. Of the Mission Impossible films. We've been reviewing all those. It's been a real blast, and we hope that you've been enjoying those as well. And those are big, full, long, 40-plus minute episodes, so go check that out, and you can do so and help this show along at the same time. Patreon.com/HMP. We really appreciate that. And if you can't do that, man, at least go out and review us on iTunes. 5-star review, a.k.a. Humdinger.
Humdinger.
It's been a while. We haven't seen those in a bit, so hopefully you guys can help out and just start throwing a couple of those 5-star reviews.
Your smartphone broken?
Yeah, and we did it on Preacher. I think we probably need to bring it to HMP as well. As steal your grandma's phone or whomever. Just hey, can I look up something on your phone here real quick? Go over to the iTunes, drop a 5-star review, say that you stole it, which is hilarious, and then just give it back to them. They won't know the better, and we get another review out of it. I like it.
Game in the system.
Yeah, listen, you got to get ahead in life some way, and when we don't have Maria Menounos money over here, okay? So just if you can't
still going after.
Yeah, that's her brain tumor's gone now, so she's fair game again.
Oh, my word.
I hear she's lovely, though. But today we're going to be covering Guardians from 2017, and it's from Mother Russia. Let's go ahead and listen to the trailer.
I have 2 weeks to search all of the former Soviet Union for the superhumans that can stop a supervillain.
Exactly right. These people are our only hope.
What's the name of the mission?
Guardians.
War is everywhere and cold inside.
We're all the same. Lair. Khan. Arsis. You want to know who did this to you? Come with us.
Rapid military attacks on Moscow continue.
Army turned out to be useless against the opposition forces. All attempts to stop it ended up with a complete shutdown of any machinery.
I've been waiting for this for half a century. There's no coming back. For all of us.
Our experimental laboratory designed special gear to increase your performance.
Where's mine?
Game is on, cards are dealt, my darling king.
Alrighty, that was the trailer for Guardians from 2017. Here's the IMDb plotline. During the Cold War, an organization called Patriot created a superhero squad, which includes members of multiple Soviet republics. For years, the heroes had to hide their identities, but in hard times, they must show themselves again. This is directed by Derrick. I don't know. Sure, why not? But I don't know how we're gonna do it. This is one that Sean picked this week, and
sorry about that, Bruce.
It's not from an actual comic, so but let's figure out how he's gonna do it. What'd you pull out of the old bag this week?
Settle in for Heroes and Villains Russian Edition. Now, worry not, I will not be so foolhardy as to try and do it in the Russian language, but I will talk about characters with Russian or Soviet roots, origins, ties, etc. This will in no way be comprehensive, but just a taste to whet one's appetite for fictional folk from the land of the Romanovs, Lenin, and Putin. Now, Bubble Comics was founded in 2011, and Bubble Comics is Russia's leading comic book publisher, at least in terms of original content, and not simply reprinting American comics. Danila the Demon Slayer is one of Bubble's characters, a grim Avenger who exterminates demons with the power of living tattoos that are made from Satan's blood. There's also Major Grom, a police detective of the St. Petersburg Police Department. And just to be clear, that's St. Petersburg, Russia, not Florida.
Dang it.
He discovers that a murderer known as the Citizen is an eccentric young billionaire and social media mogul, and he has to bring him down with all the cards stacked against him. A character named Friar is heir to the ancient generation and the owner of a powerful artifact, a cross inlaid with power gems, which he uses to battle the forces of evil. And Red Fury is the best thief in the world. There's a space smuggler named Meteora, and finally, Lilia Romanova, whose superhero name is Exlibrium, and she's an ordinary Moscow teenager who unveils the secrets of the mysterious Book Wizard Order, whose members have been trying to hold the balance between book worlds and our reality. You can go to bubblecomics.com to see artwork and longer synopses of all these characters who've appeared in over 200 issues across 10 titles in the last 5 years. They look pretty cool to me, though I must confess I have not read any of the comics. But of course, our listeners are more familiar with the Russian-type characters that have appeared in American comics. DC Comics gives us KG Beast, a Cold War-era baddie who gained a measure of notoriety for appearing in Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. And though neither good nor memorable, his character is arguably the second best thing about that movie. Now, Red Star was a one-time member of the Teen Titans who gained the ability to manipulate radiation by finding a crashed spaceship in Siberia. And his claim to fame as being the first Russian superhero in DC Comics, appearing in Teen Titans number 18 in December 1968. Now, his original name was Starfire, but I bet you can guess why he changed it. And of course, there's the famous Elseworld story Red Sun by Mark Miller, in which Superman is Russian, and he's also bad news for the USA. Now, Marvel gives us a whole lot more of the old Ruskies to talk about. Of course, Black Widow is Russian, and Peter Rasputin, a.k.a. Colossus of the X-Men, is well known. There have also been several incarnations of the Iron Man enemy, Crimson Dynamo, and most, if not all, hailed from either Russia or the USSR. Of course, Crimson Dynamo was a member of the Crimson Guard, the Marvel superhero team that most closely resembles the Team Patriot fields in the film Guardians. In addition to the power armor wearing Crimson Dynamo, there's the female Dark Star, a mutant who can draw power from the Dark Force dimension, Red Guardian, who looks like a Russian Captain America, but who is actually a mutant with the power to reflect energy. Perun is the Slavic god of thunder, and he serves on the team as a sort of communist Thor. And the most Russian member of the team is Ursa Major, a human with the ability to turn into a bear at will. Does that sound familiar to you guys? Because it should. The character of Ursus in Guardians is so similar to Ursa Major from the Red Guard that it has to be only fear of election tampering level corruption from the Russian government that prevented Disney from blocking the release of this movie in the USA. Of course, after they'd seen a screener, Disney probably realized they didn't have to worry about this flick, and I hope that was Russian enough for you guys, because that's all I've got.
That's pretty Russian to me. And like I said, this is from 2017. It cost about the equivalent of $5 million US. And didn't make the biggest of splashes all over the world. Made most of its money, as you might imagine, in the kind of the greater Russia area. And I think they made about
the Russia metro.
Yeah. And I think it made like about $2 million in China. And honestly, while watching this movie felt a lot to me like a lot of movies that were coming out of China in like the early 2000s, where it's just like, it's close to looking good. The CGI is close to looking good, but there's always something about it that's just a little bit off. There's just that extra 10% that would make it like go from mediocre to pretty good.
So I'm going to show my hand here right at the beginning. And, I think one of the things that we shy away from on this show is that we don't deal in hyperbole a lot. We have measured responses. And so I want everyone who's listening to this to understand, to me, this is not hyperbole. This is the best bad movie I think I've ever seen.
Okay.
This is exactly what I want when I want to watch something awful that I love. This is the movie. This is exactly what I wanted it to be. This is the type of movie where while you're watching it, and don't get me wrong, this movie is awful, but it's a great kind of awful. It is the thing that I found myself thinking over and over again watching this movie was, God bless them, they're trying. Like I must have said that like 15 times. Every time the dude turns into a bear, you're like, oh man, that looks like from a video game. Don't care. Still love the movie. The people in this movie have terrible dialogue. The actors are also bad with the bad dialogue. The editing is terrible. The color correctness in this movie is awful. Everything about this movie is terrible, and I do not care. I love this movie with a blinding passion. It is exactly what I wanted it to be. And to show my hand even a little more, I wanted to see what everybody was saying about this movie. And people seem to be bagging on this movie really hard because they go at it with thinking that they're watching, like a Russian version of a Marvel movie. And that is what it is. But a Marvel movie has 40 times the budget that this movie has. And so this movie, for what this movie is, because they made it for the price of like a tiny independent movie, they made this giant spectacle bit of weirdness that is so fun. So what's the bad guy? What is his superpower? Oh, he controls machines.
Like strong.
Fantastic. Everything about this movie is so you couldn't, like, it's so earnest in the making. Like, everybody really wants to do a great job. I don't know if it's a Russian sensibility or just the people who made this movie, but there's no ironic detachment while they made this movie. So, like, no one's winking at the camera. Everyone's trying their hardest, and it's just not good. And I love this movie so dearly.
Yeah, there's a very sincereness to everything that's coming out of it. And it's like, I had this idea like years ago, just kind of as like what I thought would be like kind of a Steven Soderbergh kind of experimental sort of movie. Whereas if you were writing a movie script and every single line in the movie was a line from another movie, it could even be something, very, inconsequential, like, hey, look over there. But you have to just cite where it came from. But every line in the movie is from another movie. That's what this movie kind of feels like, because everything is like the most cliched that it could possibly be. It felt like they watched a lot of American movies and a lot of like action movies and go, okay, here are all the little beats and stuff that we want to get. You got to have somebody say something like this. You got to have somebody say something like this. And they don't really realize what makes all of these movies, at least as far as like our, big giant superhero movies, they're not quite sure exactly what makes it work, but they try to grab as many of those elements that they can and just smash them all together.
Yep.
And they got a bear man with a helicopter machine gun. I mean, you can't beat that. The bear man with a minigun. Every movie should have that, honestly.
Agreed. It instantly makes the movie better.
Imagine Howard's End plus a bear man with a minigun.
Better.
Definitely.
A werebear.
Oh man, honestly, that's what intrigued me about wanting to see this movie a couple of years ago, is just seeing the trailer. And when you see and when he's like in full on bear form, not like man bear, but full on bear form, charging it like a tank with that minigun on its back shooting. I remember seeing that and thinking, okay, I got to watch this someday. I'm in. Here's my $5.
You ever watch that Golden Compass movie and you're like, man, I wish that bear had a big giant machine gun on his back? Well, this movie can fulfill that fantasy.
Of course, of course you did wonder that, because everyone did. And now wish achieved.
Yeah.
Here's one thing I'll say in all earnest here, and the way sometimes I try to look at things. If you gave me $5 million and sent me to Russia, I could not make a movie this entertaining. And, you know, sometimes when I start to insult comic book art, I sit back and think, you know what? I couldn't do it that good. So maybe I'll give this guy a break. And I'm taking first off, if they gave me $5 million and sent me to Russia to make a movie, at least $1 million of that's going to catering. Cause you know, I'll never get to make another movie.
Hey,
So
here's the thing, though. $5 million is the catering budget for a Marvel movie. So, like, they're taking that food budget and going, we're making an entire film on it. And I'll say this, it looks like it costs way more than $5 million. So, I mean, they stretched that to such a degree. And you got to, again, it's that final little touches where it just kind of falls flat. But, man, you look at it and you just go, oh, they didn't skimp on this thing. It looks expensive.
It's a good, I mean, somebody did something probably at gunpoint to get this made for $5 million.
I would think, yes.
A lot of underwriting.
You know what this movie is? You know, The Promise. Do you guys remember? Because you're both old enough to remember this. You would hear about the Roger Corman Fantastic Four movie, and so in my head, I had what that looked like, and that is not what the Roger Corman Fantastic Four movie is. There is a bit of earnestness with that movie, but there is an ironic detachment also. And so it's not nearly as fun as you want it to be when you're watching that movie. However, this movie, Guardians, absolutely 100% delivers on the thing that I wanted when I first said, hey, let's watch this movie for free on Tubby.
Yes. And that is the best way to see this movie, is for free with commercial breaks.
Without a doubt.
Apparently, it's also available for free on IMDb TV, whatever that is.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's
did not know.
Yeah.
I'll stick to Tubby. I'm a Tubby man.
I'm a Tubby man.
Yeah, I'm a Tubby man myself. Love it.
Now,
so when you guys, you know, I found myself laughing at this movie a lot, you know, just with the very, very cheeseball dialogue, and you know, like you just find like the ridiculousness of the supervillain in this movie. And when you think of like, has no one heard of an EMP before? You know, movie's over. Like, you know, a simple press of a button and this guy's off the map. However, I don't care about any of that. I had such joy watching this thing. And you know, the parts where you're just like, oh, come on, like where you're learning more about the characters, because they each get like a good, you know, like 3-minute scene where they discuss why they're the way they are. And fasty slicey guy, he's like, I just always wanted to be the best. One day I killed my brother.
Yes, one of the.
And you're just like, what was that? What?
Yeah. It's supposed to make them, I guess, tragic heroes, but they just rush it in. They rush into it and they rush out of it. It's like obligatory, but it's totally there because somebody thought it was an awesome thing to put there. It's not there to. It's not like you're watching Wet Hot American Summer, and when they put a scene like that in, you know, it's for
right
purpose.
Like they mean it, man. They are trying to emote their butts off.
And the guy whose worst fear in the world is being stuck in bear form, which, you know, that's a little insulting to bears, if you ask me. But, you know, if my worst fear in life was being stuck in bear form, man, I would have such a better life than I have right now.
You know, I was trying to think of this. Like, can you remember a moment where the thing that you were looking forward to, like for me, I was really looking forward to this, and it just delivers exactly the way I wanted this movie to deliver. And I can't remember a moment in time, with one exception, where I was like, that thing was exactly what I wanted to be, and I am so fulfilled. This is one of those movies, and LeBron James. And I can't think of anything else right now.
LeBron James is exactly what you wanted him to be.
Yeah, actually, he was better even than promised. You know, he was more than all the hype.
Yeah, he
And
was
although
he
there's
was
no
in
hype surrounding this movie, there was in my head. And so for this thing to be exactly the thing that I wanted it to be is just so magical.
So LeBron James has accomplished a lot, and he's received many, many accolades, but you're the first person that I know of to compare him to Guardians.
Hey, you got to remember,
Well,
he was also in
put that down
Trainwreck, so, you know.
Yeah.
Say what?
He was also in Trainwreck, the Amy Schumer film, and, you know, it's about as, you know, that's the more that Sean wanted. He wanted, you know, LeBron James plus more. Trainwreck is the more that we get.
No, I didn't. But I like, it was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
You know, it's a pleasant surprise where you're like, oh, this guy is going to be a game changer coming out of high school. And then he actually is the thing that is promised.
Yeah,
you know?
that really was wild.
He did exactly what Kobe Bryant did a few years before. I mean, he came out and lived up to the hype. I get what you're saying.
Yes, but I don't like mentioning Kobe because he's a legend.
Well, he's also recently departed, so I'm going to speak of him positively.
Now,
back to something less depressing. Let's talk about this awesome movie.
Now, I love the slicey cutty guy who is like, he's basically like a little bit. He's got a little bit of Winter Soldier. He's got a little bit of Nightcrawler, and he slices up stuff. He's undoubtedly the coolest character in this entire movie.
I disagree. I'm more of a werebear guy, but I get it.
I do think they did a pretty good job with him of coming up with a relatively new character. I mean, you know, in the worlds of superheroes and comic books and myths and legends, nothing is entirely new. So I don't expect them to come up with something that nobody's ever thought of in the past 80 years. But I think he's pretty good for, you know, an independent comic book hero that they have to come up with no licensing. And I thought he looked good, and I liked his power set. But yeah, I mean, the one advantage he has over the bear guy is that he's a little more original, though he's not terribly original. The bear guy's straight up a character that already existed as part of the Red Guard, but he's just so cool. Like, you know, another podcast I listen to talks about the rule of cool, and it's like, you can break any rule you want, but if it's cool, we're going to give you a pass. So Bear Man gets a pass. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's also like a combination of Tekken characters as well. He looks like King and what's the other, Kuna the bear, whatever that guy's name was from back in the day. So he's that's what I was looking at. I was just like, oh, I played this guy in Tekken back in the late 90s.
I never played Tekken, but I can see what you're saying.
Good stuff.
Now, you know, they called this movie online. This was, you know, an internet sensation sort of. You know, it got a lot of buzz for about a week, and people thought, oh, this is crazy. I can't wait to see it. Then we all forgot that we wanted to see it. But they called it the Russian Avengers. And of course, the Avengers movie's doing so well. That's sort of the nomer. You want to hang on to it. But man, this is the Russian Fantastic Four.
Yes.
I mean,
yeah, they even got an invisible lady
and a rock man.
Well, even if you think like the origin, Stan Lee's original thought for the Fantastic Four is that each of them represented an element. So you got Johnny Storm as fire, Ben Grimm as earth, the stretchy man, Mr. Fantastic, was supposed to represent water, and Invisible Girl was supposed to represent wind. Well, here they did it a little more, you know, a little more direct. With Wind Man is actually the English translation of his Russian name is Wind Man. And then the guy that looks like Thing when he covers himself with rocks, but he actually manipulates the earth, and then they turn him into Whiplash later on. Like, they're getting their money's worth. Why rip off one or two characters and you can rip off three, you know?
It just keeps compounding, and I thought that was great. And I love when they're giving them like the new suits later on, where it's just like, now, your ability to throw around rocks is really important. So we've sewn some rocks to your suit. And you're like, what is this
I
crap?
am wondering about that. I am wondering about the rock guy where like, how do you make that bridge go from, oh, we're going to give the rock guy a whip?
And here's something I wanted to say, too, is I like that the ancient Greek philosophers thought the four elements of life were wind, fire, earth, and water. And their Russian equivalents thought that it was wind, water, earth, and bears. I like it that bears are an element in Russia.
They did. If it would have been a $6 million budget, they would have had Stoli Man, you know?
Just imagine a bear that also bursts into flames when it's angry, like Johnny Oh, that would have been perfect.
Oh, we can wish. We can wish.
Flaming Bear Man was going to be in the sequel that didn't get made.
Hot Bear.
Though, of course, because it's Russia, they would literally burn a new bear every time he flamed on. So that's sad.
Wow,
we
that
just
looks
bring in new
realistic.
bear.
That bear looks really mad.
And really flammable.
What was that film? There was some movie with a bear on fire. In it.
Can we talk about the pinnacle of terrible acting in this movie, which is skinny Russian lady who is in charge of the Guardians. She is. I don't even speak her language, and I can tell how bad she is as an actress.
Oh, I didn't pick up on that.
Oh man, she's so bad. She is so bad.
Now, I think
so. Then that means that you actually have a winner over who I think is the worst one in this movie. Now, that's not to say that our supervillain in this movie is also not just amazing, like award winning. I must eat all of the scenery. Terrible acting. I love. But when she shows up, she keeps showing up in places, and I guess she has that Batman ability where you can't see her until she wants you to see her, because that happens 4 different times in this movie with her.
Well, first off, let's give credit where credit's due. The bad guy the actor's name is Stanislav Sheeran, and I'm going to watch more of his movies now.
He's only been in 2 things, this and some other movie that ain't anything like this. But the funny thing is when I was watching this, I was just like, he looks, I mean, obviously he's like a giant, weird, muscly kind of guy, but he's not really, clearly, because that's a suit he's wearing. Over top of all that,
and it's a bad looking suit.
It's like I wouldn't call the actor that's inside of it fat, but like if you put a normal person inside one of these costumes and stuff, they kind of have like these 6-pack abs and everything, but there's clearly a bit of a gut in there as well, just because the suit just doesn't fit and look right because it's not real. And so
the term you're looking for is sneaky fat. Sneaky
fat, yeah. He looks so weird and bizarre. He just has the largest traps you've ever seen in your entire life. And the voice that they put on him in the English dub version there on Tubby is hilarious. It's like I almost expected him to kind of talk even higher. It's not quite that, but it's not. There's so many voices on here that are just all over the place with this dub. It feels like a video game dub from the 90s where it's just like, hey,
well, there's
here we are.
I mean, there's basically 3 people doing the voiceover work for this entire movie. I mean, it's really bad.
And I think I think somebody wanted to go for a Bane type voice on this bad guy, because I mean, he does do the whole breaking the back over his knee like Bane does.
He does.
Strangely, the visual effects are almost equal between that particular scene and the American Dark Knight Rises in this one. But anyway, I just don't think Tom Hardy was available for the VO work, so they had to get somebody else.
Right.
He couldn't meet that quota there. It's not a little bit too much for that price.
Talk about a dream job, getting to do VO for this movie, man.
I gotta say this though, Bruce, you're the only one of us here that's actually been to Russia. Is it just propaganda that they're putting out here, or are all of their women just ridiculously hot?
Now, I'm going to say it's been a while. It's been over 20 years since I was there, about 25 years since I was there. But they take care of themselves, man.
Because, man, it's like they all just have the highest of the high cheekbones, the best defined jawline. It's just like they even, like when your little ballerina dancers / invisible woman is doing her big kind of show and everything, they even show the audience, and everyone is just beautiful.
Yeah, Moscow and St. Petersburg, the only 2 parts of Russia I was at. But yeah, they have beautiful people, women and men.
Yeah, I mean, most of the guys are pretty decent looking too. It's so strange that they're just like, it feels like they're going, we will not show any ugly people in our films. They will all be beautiful, and everyone will know that Russia is the most beautiful place on the planet.
Any stock photo of a street scene in Sweden is just full of ridiculously attractive people. That's kind of what St. Petersburg. It looks a lot like what I imagine Sweden's like.
These tall blonde people all over the place. Disgusting.
Yeah, it's Ivan Drago everywhere.
I'm surprised we didn't have more of a training sequence. There was the one, which is what I like to call the Russian danger room, where he's trying out the whip. And but my biggest question is this: if you can become invisible, and with the suit that they give her and everything, she's able to kind of, I guess, from what they said, clench her neck muscles and then become invisible. I don't know why that would be the muscle that
way
she
to
would
do
go
it
to.
too.
Wouldn't you just be invisible all the time? I mean, I absolutely would just go in. I would never show my face because, especially if you're in a big giant fight, why expose yourself? It always seems so silly to me.
Yeah, you make a valid point. It's kind of like if I were a real superhero who wore a mask, I would probably want to keep that mask on all the time, but in movies I got to take it off. It's something like that.
I'll say this, at least with the two new Spider-Mans, they've continued to have him mostly wear his mask, which is good because in the Sam Raimi ones there would always be an excuse for that mask to get messed up so you could see his face. There was none of that in the new
revolutionized it where they would have those scenes where you'd see like Tony's face inside the mask looking at the heads-up display, Yeah.
Am I wrong though? Wasn't that in comics before the movie and stuff though?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that it was because when I was reading Iron Man in the late '90s and stuff, Sean Chen, favorite Iron Man artist by the way. I feel like I saw a lot of that. I could be wrong.
Okay. Might have been. I don't remember it real clearly before then. I know it definitely wasn't like that in the 80s when I was reading a lot of Iron Man.
No, not them, but I think like late 90s, early 2000s and stuff. They'd done a bit of that. So when I saw it in the movie, it was just like, oh, they're actually doing something smart and like letting us be able to see this character's face without having to, go that Spider-Man 2 route.
And when they got their like power up costumes, they were there in the Patriot headquarters and they each got the costume to help augment their abilities in some way when the guy gets his whip. And they give the lady like a costume and they say, and your costume can turn invisible along with you. But earlier in the movie, when it was raining, she steps out in the rain and her clothes go invisible too. Like they didn't even do what the Fantastic Four movie did with Jessica Alba, where they like tease us like she's taking her clothes off to get naked, but she goes invisible before you see any of the nakedness. They didn't even do that with like a pile of clothes falling on the ground.
Yeah, but at least there was
they already showed her able to do what the suit could do.
It was in the suit though, but they did give a nice gratuitous butt shot. It's like, all right, and for some reason there's like lights that come up right at like where her tailbone is and everything. I'm like, that's strange, but okay, sure. I'll buy it.
A backup light, so you can see what's going on when you're moving back. Cars have them.
I'm going to say something controversial here. I'm glad they had that light.
Yeah.
Me too. Why not?
Very controversial.
It's the important things. But so when it comes to like her and a lot of that action and stuff, it seemed to me like the choreography and everything was really there, but it just didn't feel like they knew quite how to shoot it as well as they could have. It feels like
some of it. I think that first scene with runny, slicey in the desert,
I thought
that was very well done. But when it comes to other scenes like that ridiculous scene on the pipe, like there's some really clunky stuff happening, but I mostly agree with you.
His stuff was cool, but I think a lot of that is also they had to really, really plan that out with special effects and everything to make it look exactly like it's supposed to. But like when the hand-to-hand combat stuff, it's like, man, if you would have just like cut here or cut there or used a different shot or pushed in a little bit further or pulled out, it could have been massaged into something that was actually really good. And maybe there was a couple of sound dubbing things as far as like the hits and everything that you could manipulate and make that a much better sequence. It was just like it felt so frustrating because it was like it was so close to being good, but it didn't quite make it.
I thought it was better than Accident Man in those terms. I was having fun with it.
There's no Scott Speedman or whatever that cat's name is. Ackerman. I don't know what his name is. That's how
Ackerman,
Scott
that's
Ackerman
who it is. Scott Ackerman, martial arts master.
Listen. That's another thing. That cat just like he's so generic. He's one of the generic white people in Hollywood. They're just like, oh yeah, he's just a guy with his face looking like everybody else with a name that's not very, doesn't stand out. You're no Hugh Jackman.
But you guys had to be impressed when you found out that they could all like combine themselves for a blast, like the same way Care Bears can do when they shoot their Care Bear heart beam all together, and it makes one super strong Care Bear beam.
It's called the Care Bear Stare, first and foremost, Bruce.
Well, the Care Bear Stare they can do individually, but they have like the Super Stare
that's
where
right.
all the Care Bears stare together.
It's the Care Bear Voltron.
Yeah, it's sort of like that.
Just put it all together.
No, if anything, it's far more like the Ghost Rider Penance Stare.
Except there's 4 Ghost Riders staring at once.
And it's all love coming at you.
Exactly.
And the beams
No, I'm
combine-
talking about the Care Bears specifically. I think you were spot on with that the Guardians are exactly like the Care Bears with that. I totally agree with you. But I'm saying that if you need another example of what the Care Bear Stare is like, it is like the Penance Stare of Ghost Rider.
Or maybe like crossing the beams in Ghostbusters a little bit.
Perfect example.
We don't want to have to do it. No.
Because just like crossing the beams, they thought that doing their Care Bear Stare together might destroy the world. That was a big fear.
It was, and they were right to be fearful.
I was nervous. Were you guys nervous when they decided to do the Care Bear Stare together?
What are you kidding me? Of course. Edge of my seat. Look, there's a lot about this movie that had me edge of my seat. You know?
And I might have misinterpreted what was shown on the screen, but it looked to me like they did flatten all of Moscow with it.
Oh man, the amount of destruction in this thing makes that Snyder Superman flick look tame.
You weren't wrong, man.
They level Russia
they don't
like
even
you ain't
bother
never
going
seen.
in. Like it's just you're just looking at it from like that bird's eye view when they keep destroying stuff.
Yeah.
But they're
so
just like,
good.
well, it's just we're all going down. and you don't even have like the Superman thing where they're like, well, everybody's on vacation or we sent everyone out. Everyone evacuated the building. It's like, no, billions of people died. It was insane.
You guys screwed up. Now the bad guy, not only is he going to control all the machines, he's also going to control all the satellites.
I like how the bad guy also, he kind of looks like the guy at the beginning of Prometheus, but if you just put him in the Matrix. And
I didn't think of that. You're right. He does look like that.
You give him some like non-specific, vague apocalypse type tubing going up and down his arms.
Yeah, exactly. But again, very Bane-esque where it's just like, oh, I'll press this button and I'll go super powerful on everybody.
Bane plus Whiplash equals this guy.
I thought the Whiplash thing also was crazy when he's like flipping around that whip and everything. I get it. This is a new piece of technology, but by that point he'd started working with it a little bit. And then by the time that he knows how everything works, he wildly swings it behind his head, making the people who are running the desk there monitoring his process duck out of the way of this electrical rock whip. And he looks back and I'm like, look at that. I just did all that stuff. I'm like, you almost killed me, dude.
Was it just me or did that whip get longer the more he swung it?
Oh, it got there's no real and here's how I tried to justify it in my head, right? Is my thought was he's got this little the handle shoots out this electrical thing, whatever. And then all the kind of rocks that are in it that form that entire thing, he's also controlling those at the same time. At least this is what I kind of put together in my head. And so that's how he kind of combined his power. So it wasn't like he had just a weapon. It was a weapon that was also an extension of his power. Maybe I'm reading too much into it.
How far are we from being able to buy electric whips in real life? Just want to know. Because I saw a picture of a guy in Raleigh with a rocket launcher on his back at like a Subway, so I should be able to have an electric whip.
Yeah. Listen, well, here's the thing. Which does come first, though? Because I feel like you got to have lightsaber before you have electric whip, though.
I think electric whip
What
pretty
I
easy.
don't understand is
Batteries
why
and
do you
cable.
need a whip if you can throw rocks at people?
Because sometimes you want to whip them too. I can throw rocks at people, but I can't whip them electronically. I mean, imagine throwing a rock at your kids versus chasing around with an electric whip. Which do you think's more intimidating?
Why are there rocks in the electric whip?
Because he's Rock Man.
Yeah, it's part of his power. I think he kind of hovers those within the whip itself, and that's what makes it extra powerful or something. At the same time, again, you just kind of go, well, why don't you just use all the electric stuff? Why do you need the rocks in there?
Okay, I'm trying to picture it. I need like some real high conductivity cable with like rocks wrapped around it, send I don't know, 1,000 volts through it and swing it around my head and chase people.
I figure it's like a dirty
if
bomb.
The electricity don't get you, the rocks will. That's what I'll tell them.
Yeah, it's like a dirty bomb. You just put a whole bunch of debris and stuff in there, and it makes the electric whip even worse. And you're like, oh man, it would be one thing to get hit with electricity, but it's another one to have electricity and rocks in it. Oh no, thank you.
I got to tell you, somebody's chasing. Like 2 people are chasing me. One has just an electric whip. One has an electric whip with rocks. I'm more intimidated by the rocks. You're right. Rocks hurt.
Bruce Leslie, rocks hurt. Put it on his tombstone.
Put it on the poster.
And I'm gonna make a bold statement here, guys.
All right.
This villain in this movie, still a better version of Doctor Doom than anything Fox gave us.
Oh, that's not controversial at all. I think this is, with the exception of The Incredibles, this is the best Fantastic Four movie we've ever seen. And it's bad. This movie's terrible, but I love it.
It's, this movie succeeds for me the same way that the David Hasselhoff Nick Fury movie succeeds. Like,
right.
I'm never not happy while I'm watching it.
It's true. It's true, man. Like, it just delivers on every level. I mean, even the bad dub of this movie is just perfect. Do you really want great voice cast for this movie that, is really terribly made? It would feel so weird.
Now, do you speak German at all, Sean?
No.
9.
I don't either, but I may have to learn, because I found out there's a German dub of this where they looked at it and said, okay, we're going to make this a lowbrow comedy. And they made a German dub where all the dialogue reflects their interpretation of this as a lowbrow comedy that they released on DVD and Blu-ray. So I really might have to learn German, because I want to see that version of this movie.
I wish they would have at least had the foresight to have these in the dub, have the characters have at least somewhat of a Russian accent. You don't have to go Yakov Smirnoff, but you got to give me a little something. Put a little spin on it to make me go, oh, that's right, this is Russia. We're in Russia, instead of just like, hey, everybody, here I am. I'm talking because I am a guy who is in a thing.
Nope, I want them all to sound like they're from South America.
I mean, even the dub, it sounds like early video game voiceover.
Mm-hmm. And you got like, it's in a soundproof booth, so it's complete dead air, and they haven't manipulated it afterwards to make it sound a little bit more like you're in the environment that you're actually in. It's like, nope, it's going to sound like a VO closet.
It wouldn't have been much worse if they did that thing where you can actually hear the Russian speech at a very low volume with the American or the English dub over top of it.
Oh my gosh, that would have been the worst.
Because I've seen a few movies that are like I'm going to just guess, because I don't know, like the language they're in originally is Polish, then they're dubbed in like Russian, so you can kind of barely hear the Polish, then you got the Russian overdub, and then there's subtitles in English. I've actually seen movies with like 3 layers of translation, and I don't know what the original dialogue was, but I feel confident it's very different from the subtitles.
Yeah.
Yes, I would imagine so.
I would hope that everything that everyone said in this movie was in the actual thing that was in the script itself, in the original Russian script. I did find it funny though that it's all English, but when we get to Rockman, he's in his little monastery thing there. The Lord's Prayer is in Russian, but everything else is.
Well, I don't think it's in Russian though.
Is that not? I don't know.
Kazakh. Yeah, I think they did that for effect, because if you were in Russia watching this movie, that would not have been Russian to your ears. It would have had subtitles, but they would have been Russian subtitles. So they replaced those with English subtitles. So it'd be like if a Russian person was watching a Hollywood film where everybody is speaking English, and then they got a scene where somebody's praying in Spanish and it had English subtitles at the bottom.
Yeah.
So I think it would be a situation like, how do you handle that in the Russian dub? Well, it's like the inverse of that. So just imagine, it's their equivalent of praying in Spanish or Latin or something.
All that Eastern European stuff's very confusing.
Which brings me to the question: what was he speaking? I mean, was he speaking Latin?
I think it was Kazakh, but I'm not positive.
That's too bad. I was hoping it was some gibberish made up thing. That would have been better.
It's listen.
Kazakh might be gibberish because the only Kazakh I know is what has been spoken by Sacha Baron Cohen. So that's how I identified it.
Hey, the actual the Cuddy Cuddy Whip Man, I think he is from Kazakhstan. Yeah, they
find him in Kazakhstan, but I don't know if he's
the actual actor is, according to IMDb.
Okay, well there you have it.
Sanjar Mehdi. He's that's I don't know. I thought he was kind of the coolest guy of all of these characters.
The only way I can tell if somebody's from Kazakhstan is if I see him at the beach. So
Yakshimash. those bathing suits go on sale. I'm trying to think. That's the thing, that there's not much that happens in the movie, and they go through all of these little. It felt like very checklist kind of thing, where they're like, okay, here's how we got to go. She's got to go out. She's got to find all these people. She's got to bring them all together.
You know, it's so clearly a reversed engineered movie, and that's its greatness, is that whoever made this movie, whomever is responsible, like whoever it wouldn't be a showrunner, but whoever created this movie, like the head voice, really was like, we need to boil down the essence of every bit of these American made superhero movies, and we need to make our own superhero movie. And so you have all of those marks, right? So like you have Dark Knight of the Soul there, when they all get their butts kicked. Even when they're using their superpowers, they get their butts kicked
in the first act.
Right. You have those moments of why are you like this, where people are speaking to why they're there. You have the amazing, just kind of like leap over problems with your plotting, where they ask, like, well, why would these guys still be in their 20s if they're Cold War remnants? We don't age. Okay, done. Bam. Put that on the whiteboard.
And they've got a dose of amnesia thrown in, because that's a nice little superhero movie thing.
We don't want to have to explain that. Like they leapfrog over the stuff that a lot of American superhero movies kind of trip over.
And they made a good decision here at the very beginning. They are in their control center and they say, we need to find these experiments from the Cold War. And then within 30 seconds, all 4 of them have been located on the computer. And everyone
a quick Google search brought everybody up.
A lot of movies would be tempted to take us on a 30-minute search for these people. And this movie could not have handled being interesting for 30 minutes without them using their powers. So one thing I'll say this movie did right. A lot of movies that we see, they have to build up to the crazy action at the end. This one is like, we're just, it's like when you start the car and the radio volume's already turned up to 11. We're just going to do that with the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally. I have expected her to look at the camera.
I'm wondering if the Mandalorian might have stolen something from this script, because there's that moment where they're trying to convince the big lady, Cara Dune. Is that her name?
Cara Dune.
They're trying to convince her, hey, come on. I know that you said you were never going to leave planet, but we really are doing something good here. And she's like, I'm not interested. Hey, that guy you hate is there. Oh, then I'm in. Like,
yep.
There's no back and forth. There's no nothing. And this movie was made first, and they do that in this movie. Where like, oh, you'll never convince me to go. Oh yeah, that guy's going to be there. Oh, then I'm in.
Also, man, $5 million budget, and still this movie is considered a financial failure in Russia, which bums me out. First off, I mean, I don't know what Russian movie tickets cost. Like maybe you go to the movies for $1.25 or something. I don't know. But it bums me out because I really like it when a movie has a super low budget, because there's like nothing to lose and we're going to get 5 sequels, like Resident Evil style. Because I would love to have like 5 of these movies out there, because who can only imagine what they would do. And these guys, when they're making this is something we were talking about a week or two ago, Sean, that you brought up. But they went in this with so much confidence that this was going to be a franchise. They even have the mid-credit scene and everything. And And they absolutely scrapped their plans for the sequel when this movie failed to cover its $5 million budget in Russia.
And the funny thing is it already kind of feels like a sequel because part of it you're watching, you're just like, was there a movie that I didn't see that where all this stuff is kind of talked about? Because they all reference it like, well, of course we all know that.
It kind of has that X-Men First Class feel where it's like the first movie in this series, but it's characters you're supposed to already kind of know, and you're supposed to be a little bit comfortable in this world.
Yeah, you get it. You're not. They don't have to weigh in, but here you're just like, all right, well, there you go. This is part of the world, and you know that.
What happened to the warehouse full of the super bad guys' clones?
Now, were those clones? I got to ask about those clones because we just watched the Clone Wars, so I hear clones. I got Star Wars on my mind. Did he find a Tusken Raider and clone a bunch of those, or are those supposed to be clones of the main bad guy?
They're clones of him.
Yeah,
but
that's
they
what
don't look like him.
Well, they couldn't replicate him again. They're just got to give him that Tusken Raider mask, which did look cool. All that stuff did look very very stylized. I liked it.
And I started to wonder if maybe the people who wrote this movie didn't know the difference between a clone and a drone, and maybe these are like robot men or something with those face things.
Oh, I hope that's right.
Translation problem. That's all it is.
Because they get one of his clones and they bring in the scientist with the bow tie and the glasses to try and reverse engineer him or something, and he gets gassed to death. Like I have a million questions about the clones that I wanted to have answered in a sequel we're never going to get.
Everything got blown up at the end, so you can just go ahead and assume that all those clones were all in that big giant mess of destruction.
And all the comic books and the novels that tie into this are all prequels, not sequels. So no questions answered there.
All right. Okay, before we get to our final analysis here and everything, I don't know how in the wide world of sports he's going to pull it off today, but for some reason, every single episode, we have to find out how this comic book movie relates back 1-to-1 with Sylvester Stallone.
Thanks, Adam. I got a prepared statement. It's hard to think of Stallone without thinking of Rocky. And as of this recording, even though there have been 8 Rocky movies, including spinoffs, still, the most financially successful Rocky movie of all time is Rocky IV. And the first time we ever brought up Rocky IV was episode 7 of HMP. You guys reviewed the first Blade movie. And while it wasn't the first Stallone connection, it was the first Stallone connection that first generation other Sean had written beforehand. Most notably during that episode, Bruce Leslie warns Keenan that on that episode, he's just set a dangerous precedent, and he's going to have to write a new Stallone connection every week. Keenan laughs it off. And now 7 years later, Keenan's long gone, and I'm forced to write one each week while he's somewhere doing what I can only assume is something stupid. A lot of Rocky IV might be set in the USSR, but the closest Stallone ever got to Russia during filming was Vancouver, British Columbia. And you don't need to be a map expert to realize that's roughly a Pacific Ocean-sized distance away. But thanks to HMP's crack research staff, we have plenty of Stallone connections involving Mr. Stallone and the former Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. And before I start with these connections, I just want to say what a great job Marcus and Angela and Margaret did this week. You guys are the real heroes who keep us staying super. Thank you. Stallone's mom's side of the family is from Odessa in the Ukraine. And if you want to see something hilarious, there is a picture of old Jackie Stallone sitting with a family member who looks like the Russian Sylvester Stallone. His arm is around Jackie, and Jackie has the look on her face. It's a type of horror that someone can only achieve after having way too much plastic surgery and collagen injections. Jackie claims that she went to the Soviet Union looking for a family, and Gorbachev himself had the KGB look them up. And when she found that family, the picture was taken of her and the Russian Italian stallion. She, in turn, read Gorbachev his horoscope. I'm sure he was thrilled. Stallone had an exhibition of his artwork in St. Petersburg, and when reading an article on CNN's website, they called it, quote, Rocky's Horrible Picture Show, unquote.
Oh, nice.
Their words, not mine. The same collection had a showing in Moscow, and there's an incredibly awkward press conference during this time where a very nice, very well put together Stallone is fielding questions from the Russian media. And at one point he says, "I love art more than anything else in the world except for my family." And he looks tired and jet lagged. And it's clear that he really earnestly loves art. And while CNN's headline is hilarious, I'm not in the business of punching people in the face when they're trying their hardest. And if Stallone's willing to travel to Russia to show his art, then guess what? He's trying his best. I'm not going to kill him for that. And while there's many, many more connections between Russia and Stallone, the last one I'm going to mention takes place last year, and this article was written by the Moscow Times. Quote, Russian-speaking Instagram users are setting their sights on newer and brawnier targets. A popular comic issued a challenge this week to, quote, have a go at, unquote, action star Sylvester Stallone, who had just released the trailer for the sequel to his classic film Rambo. New game Russian cyber attack, Garrett Karlamov wrote to his 6.1 million followers on Tuesday, directing him to go to Stallone's Instagram page and leave as many Russian comments as possible on the trailer. Russian users did not disappoint. Cyrillic letters dominated the more than 12,000 comments on Sly's trailer, firmly parking themselves on his page in the last 24 hours. Quote, did I miss something? One user wrote. Then there's a joke about some Russian model that I didn't understand, so I didn't write it here. They wrote recipes and dumb gossip, tabloid stuff, all in Russian. And the most outrageous part to me is that there's a comedian in Russia that has 6.1 million Instagram followers. That dude must be hilarious. So there you have it, HMPers and Dinglingers. This week's Stallone connection is Russia herself. I'm sweet Sean Z. You're welcome, people of English-speaking Earth.
Well, here at Hero Movie Podcast, we have our own patented Robin rating system. If you'd like to check that out, head on over to facebook.com/Hero Movie Podcast. It's right there at the top of the screen. And by the way, I do want to say this before we get to all this kind of stuff. We're at about 1,300 subscribers over on YouTube, man. So if you'd like to hear this show when you're at a place where you can't quite get to your phone or whatever streaming, it's all the episodes are up over on youtube.com/Hero Movie Podcast. So subscribe over there.
Good job, you at.
We'd appreciate that.
Good job, buddy.
And so, Bruce, get your Adidas tracksuit on here. And what is your rating for Guardians?
First off, when I was there, they loved Reebok tracksuits. So
times have
take
changed.
that for what it's worth. I looked at IMDb to see what people on IMDb thought, to kind of help me find how to put this mix of emotions I feel when watching this movie into words. And one IMDb review basically described this movie as Man, Bear, and Friends, which I think is a much better title than Guardians.
Oh, yeah.
I think they called the movie Man, Bear, and Friends. It's making double the box office, whatever that was. Somebody else on IMDb said that they came across this movie on the internet and thought it was the sequel to Guardians of the Galaxy. They watched it, and it wasn't, but they still liked it. I wish I had found this that way. I like the English...
Rocket's
like
huge.
English isn't the first language for this person who left the review. So I like to imagine maybe I'm living somewhere where you have to get your entertainment over the internet because you don't have easy access to movie theaters, and you're all excited to see Chris Pratt. And you think Bear Man is Chris Pratt for a while. Like it takes a while for it to kick in. Plus, you don't speak either. I'm going to say you don't even speak Russian. And you're not that good at English, so you don't quite know what's going on. So you're really thinking this is Guardians 2 for a while. I wonder how deep you get into this before you realize it's not Guardians 2. I don't know. But they could have called it Man and Bear Friends Volume 2, and I would have done better.
This James Gunn has really lost his touch.
I agree with what Sean said. It's the kind of fun, like the unintentionally funny is way better than trying to do this sort of thing on purpose. And there's that verisimilitude that's there that I like, and I have to give this like the Tim Drake that is it. They failed at what they attempted to do, but they succeeded at something they never dreamed possible. So, Tim Drake.
It's like the Apollo 13 of superhero movies. Sean,
This is I really mean it when I say this. This is a terrible, terrible movie. And I want to preface that with this. It is not a good movie. It is very bad, but it is amazing. It is it's like a warehouse of dumpsters on fire. That's how great this movie is. This is a Dick Grayson for me. This is exactly the thing that I thought it was, and it is, and it's perfect. And I will watch this movie more than once, and I will love it, and I will just enjoy my time, and I'll be doing other things as I'm watching it, and it doesn't matter. Every single time you see Werebear with minigun on his shoulder, I'm sorry, that is fantastic. This is a Dick Grayson.
I'm going. I got to go Damien here. I'm right in the middle. I can't. It's not good, but it is. There is something about it that does have that entertainment value. That if you sat down with a group of people and go, dude, it's Russian Avengers, and you watched it, you'd laugh the entire time, but you'd still have a good time. It's not one of those. The laughs are like, I can't believe I'm seeing this kind of laughs, as opposed to this is so stupid and dumb. Because, again, you're right. The honesty is what really drives this thing. No one's winking at the camera. They came to this to really make a good, honest-to-God movie. And for $5 million, they did a heck of a job. I really can't believe that this thing looks as big and grand as it is for $5 million. Fall short on some of the technical sides, but man, you're having enough fun to where you really don't quite care. And
if they gave me $5 million to make the sequel, the three of us would go to Russia and make a $2 million movie, if you catch my drift.
Oh yeah, exactly. There'd be a lot of laundering going on over there. So, but yeah, that's it, everybody. That's Guardians. It's available on IMDb TV, whatever the hell that is. I don't know how you get to it, but search it out.
Tubi,
aka Tubby. So, whichever one of those you like to go to, check those out. And I think it's available for rent and stuff other places, but don't pay for it. Just watch it on the free stuff. Watch the Safe Light commercials and enjoy yourself that way.
You are right, man. There's a million Safe Light commercials in that thing.
So get your windshield fix and get your Guardian fix at the exact same time.
Safe Light repair, Safe Light replace.
Terrible. Safe Light, if you'd like to sponsor this show, heromoviepodcast@gmail.com. We'll talk it up. But that is it, everybody. Join us next week when we're talking about Patreon stuff. That's right. We're going to lend it out to you guys who support us over at patreon.com/HMP every single month. Those fine people get to vote on the film we watch. We don't have those available for you right now to choose from. But you know what? If you're over there, you know what they are by this point. So go check that out, patreon.com/HMP, and we'll look at all that kind of fun and good stuff next week. Bruce, until then, where can we find more of your work on the internet?
You can just look for Chubby Wizard, look for Clone Wars 30 Questions, look for you know what? If you like the Redford administration, you should check that out. The HBO show. People maybe have watched Watchmen now and they didn't watch it first run, and you want to go back and talk about it. We got a whole bunch of the 30 Questions format shows out there now for people to choose from.
A plethora of goodness for everybody. Sean, what about you?
Oh, the same thing that Bruce just said. Also, I'm going to take this moment to say that, Bruce and Adam are doing a ton of work that isn't HMP, and you should check out some of their work with that stuff.
Like the Film Find. We're back this week, everybody. We got 2 movies this week. First up on Monday, as you're listening to this, we're talking Extraction, the new giant action flick on Netflix. So go check that out at thefilmfind.com. Of course, heremoviepodcast.com, and all of those good things. Check them out. Links are always in the show notes as per usual. That's it, everybody. Join us next week when we're talking a Patreon vote exclusive. For Sweet Sean's and Kovacs from the internet, Bruce Leslie. My name's Adam Portrais. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie.